Melissa Harrow and her 6-year-old daughter Lily vanished without a trace after what was supposed to be a peaceful weekend getaway, leaving behind a cabin full of untouched belongings, a child's eerie drawing, and a trail of footprints that led nowhere. What happened in those cold, silent woods? And why, weeks later, did they resurface for just minutes, only to disappear again? On a crisp October morning, Melissa Harrow buckled her 6-year-old daughter Lily into the back seat of their blue Subaru Outback. The sun had barely risen, casting a golden glow across the quiet Boise neighborhood where they lived. It was meant to be a simple weekend getaway, just the two of them. Melissa had been through a lot in the past year. Her divorce had finalized, only a few months earlier, ending a long, emotionally draining marriage. She needed space, clarity, and time to focus on Lily, who had taken the separation hard. A trip into nature, far from the stress of daily life, seemed like the perfect escape. Their destination was a small cabin outside Stanley, nestled deep in the Sawtooth Mountains. It wasn't listed on any major travel site. Melissa had found it through a local message board, described as quiet, private, and ideal for reflection. She was drawn to the idea of seclusion. The plan was to spend the weekend hiking, making s'mores, and enjoying the stillness of the forest before winter set in. Lily had been excited too. She packed her favorite books, a stuffed rabbit named Snowy, and a sketch pad she never went anywhere without. The drive took about 2 hours. As the road curved higher into the mountains, the air turned colder and the trees thicker. They passed only a few cars. Cell service faded halfway through the drive, but Melissa didn't mind. She wanted to disconnect. She had stocked the car with supplies, extra food, warm clothes, flashlights, and even a backup battery for emergencies. She was always prepared. They arrived at the cabin just before noon. It was exactly as advertised, small, wooden, and surrounded by towering pines. The nearest neighbor was nearly a mile away. A narrow dirt trail led behind the cabin and disappeared into the woods. Inside, everything looked clean but worn, with simple furniture and a wood-burning stove. Melissa posted a few photos to her social media account, one of Lily holding a marshmallow stick by the fire pit, another of the sun setting behind the trees, casting long shadows across the clearing. That night, they made cocoa, read stories, and curled up under thick blankets. Lily drew pictures by the fire while Melissa stared into the flames, feeling something she hadn't felt in months: peace. The next morning, Sunday, they stayed close to the cabin, playing games and wandering just a little ways into the forest. It snowed lightly in the afternoon. Melissa took a short video of Lily catching snowflakes on her tongue. That would be the last post anyone would ever see. No one knew what happened after that. By Monday, when Melissa failed to show up for work, and Lily didn't appear at school, concern turned to alarm. Calls to Melissa's phone went straight to voicemail. Friends contacted her family. Eventually, someone notified the sheriff. What began as a quiet weekend retreat would soon turn into one of the most puzzling missing persons cases Idaho had ever seen. When Melissa and Lily didn't return home on Sunday night, no one panicked at first. Melissa had mentioned wanting to unplug for the weekend, and her friends assumed she'd just lost track of time. But by Monday afternoon, the concern grew more urgent. Melissa didn't show up for work at the real estate office where she was known to be punctual, professional, and dependable. Lily's school confirmed she hadn't been dropped off that morning, and there had been no call to explain her absence. That's when red flags were raised. Melissa's sister, Jennifer, was the first to contact the local authorities in Stanley. She explained that Melissa and Lily were staying at a rental cabin in the Sawtooth Mountains and hadn't been heard from since Sunday. By early evening, deputies from the Custer County Sheriff's Office made their way up to the cabin to perform a welfare check. The scene they discovered only deepened the mystery. The cabin door was slightly ajar. Inside, the lights were on, and the fireplace had burned out recently, with ashes still warm. Melissa's phone was sitting on the kitchen table, along with her car keys and wallet. Their luggage was in the bedroom, clothes neatly folded in their bags. On the counter sat a half-eaten sandwich and a cup of juice, untouched. It looked as though they had simply stepped outside and never came back. The Subaru was still parked outside, undisturbed. There were no signs of forced entry, no broken windows, no struggle. But there were odd details that didn't sit right with investigators. Both pairs of boots, Melissa's hiking boots and Lily's small snow boots, were missing. Their jackets were gone too, suggesting they had left the cabin willingly. But why would they head into the woods with no phone, no map, and no supplies? Search and rescue teams were called in that night. Flashlights combed the surrounding area, and by morning helicopters were dispatched to scan the vast wilderness from above. Bloodhounds picked up a scent trail behind the cabin, following it along a narrow dirt path. It led them about half a mile into the trees before the trail vanished near a shallow creek. No signs of a fall, no clothing left behind, and no footprints on the other side. It was as if they had vanished into thin air. The following days saw an intense effort to locate the missing mother and daughter. Hundreds of volunteers from the surrounding towns showed up to help, forming search lines and combing through dense underbrush. Drones were flown overhead, while divers searched nearby lakes and rivers. Tips came in from across the region, but none led to anything concrete. One clue stood out, though. About 200 feet from the cabin, stuck in a bramble of thorns, a single pink mitten was discovered. It matched a pair Lily had been wearing in one of Melissa's final social media posts. Near the mitten, small footprints, likely Lily's, were found in the mud. But the tracks didn't lead anywhere. They simply stopped. Despite the exhaustive efforts, Melissa and Lily remained missing, with no witnesses, no calls, and no activity. On Melissa's bank accounts or credit cards, investigators were left with a terrifying question. Had the pair wandered into the wilderness and gotten lost, or was someone else involved? Someone who knew the woods better than anyone else. 2. Weeks had passed since Melissa and Lily vanished. The initial flurry of search efforts had begun to slow, worn down by harsh weather, rugged terrain, and the complete absence of answers. Public interest remained high, with the case making headlines across the state, but each day brought more silence. The hope of finding them alive was fading, until a hunter stumbled upon something strange deep in the woods, 12 miles north of the cabin. He had been tracking deer near an overgrown clearing when he noticed a splash of color among the underbrush. Nestled between roots and fallen branches was a small pink backpack. It was damp, muddy, and partially torn. Inside, protected by a plastic sandwich bag, were several crayons, a folded napkin with Lily written in blocky letters, and a sketch pad. The top page of the pad was stained and torn, but one drawing remained intact. It showed 2 stick figures, a woman and a child, standing between tall trees. Behind them loomed a large, dark figure with wide arms and no face. Tucked inside the back cover was another, even more unsettling detail. the word "run" scribbled in what appeared to be a child's handwriting. It was shaky, rushed, and barely legible. Authorities were called immediately, and within hours the area was swarming with investigators, dogs, and drones. The backpack was confirmed to belong to Lily, her fingerprints and a small birthmark, matching those described by family, made it unmistakable. This discovery reignited the investigation. The search was refocused on the northern region of the forest, far beyond where teams had originally looked. Aerial surveillance revealed an abandoned structure hidden near the edge of a frozen river, a small shack that hadn't been marked on any official maps. It was surrounded by trees and almost entirely camouflaged by vines and brush. From the air, it looked like just another cluster of shadows. When ground teams reached the building, what they found was disturbing. The shack was old, with a sagging roof and rusted nails poking through warped wooden boards. Inside, dust coated everything, but there were clear signs of recent use. A pile of blankets, some old canned food, and a wood-burning stove had been arranged in the center of the room. On the floor lay more sketches, many of them done with crayons. Several depicted the same dark figure seen in Lily's drawing. Others showed what looked like a cabin surrounded by eyes. One drawing had a red X marked over a crude outline of a woman. No sign of Melissa or Lily was found inside, but tucked under the blankets was a hand-drawn map of the surrounding forest. A red trail had been marked leading even deeper into the wilderness, toward an area too remote for search teams to have covered. Investigators couldn't tell if the map was created by a child or an adult. The handwriting was inconsistent, but the message was clear. Someone had led them further in. The discovery left more questions than answers. Who had been living in the shack? Was it connected to their disappearance? Or was it something even darker? And what did Lily's drawing truly mean? The discovery of the shack and Lily's backpack changed the tone of the investigation entirely. What had initially been viewed as a tragic but accidental disappearance now carried the shadow of something far more sinister. The forest, once seen as a place of peace and escape, had become a maze of unanswered questions and quiet dread. Investigators pored over every inch of the shack, hoping to uncover a name, a clue, anything that could link the location to a person. What they found instead was a ghost trail. Someone had been there recently, but they were already gone. Among the items recovered from the shack was a torn page from a survival manual, notes scrawled in the margins about building snares and finding edible plants. Several animal bones were piled in a bucket beside the door, but what stood out most was a single worn boot print just outside the back of the structure. Forensic analysts compared it to known shoe models and discovered it matched an outdated brand of military-grade boot, one no longer manufactured and rarely sold to civilians. This detail triggered a deeper search into regional records, where investigators uncovered the name of a man who had lived off-grid in the area years earlier, Henry Gault. He was a former forest ranger who had been discharged for erratic behavior and paranoia. Locals remembered him as eccentric and intense, a man who believed people were being tracked through satellite signals and refused to live under a roof with electricity. After losing his job, Gault had supposedly retreated into the mountains. Over time, the rumors surrounding him grew strange. Some claimed to have seen him watching hikers from the trees. Others said he left strange symbols along trails. Eventually, the sightings stopped altogether. A search of old land deeds revealed the shack had once been listed under Gault's name. It had been legally abandoned, but no one had checked it in years. That fact alone was disturbing enough, but when a hiker came forward with a new tip, the story took another chilling turn. The man, who had been in the area just 2 days before Melissa and Lily disappeared, said he had encountered someone on a narrow trail not far from the cabin. The figure was male, tall and heavily bearded, wearing a long, tattered coat. He wasn't carrying a backpack, just something wrapped in fabric held tightly against his chest. The hiker said he gave a polite nod, but the man didn't respond, just stared, muttering something unintelligible before continuing down the trail. At the time, it didn't seem important. But when the hiker saw Melissa and Lily's pictures on the news, he felt uneasy. The encounter had been close to their cabin, and the man's direction of travel placed him directly between their last known location and the shack. The information reignited fears that Melissa and Lily hadn't just gone missing, they had been taken. Whoever had occupied that shack may have been watching, waiting, and possibly followed them. The wilderness was vast, and now investigators feared they were dealing with someone who knew how to disappear within it. Winter came early that year. By mid-November, the forest was buried in snow and temperatures dropped well below freezing. The once relentless search efforts began to slow, not because hope had disappeared, but because the weather made any further ground searches dangerous. With no new leads, no communications, and no activity on Melissa's or Lily's accounts, the case was quietly reclassified from a rescue operation to a missing persons investigation with suspected foul play. Still, authorities kept the case active, hoping that a tip, a sighting, or a breakthrough might surface. Then, something unexpected happened. Nearly 6 weeks after Melissa and Lily were last seen, a truck driver passing through a remote gas station near the Nevada border reported a strange interaction. It was late at night, and he noticed a woman and a young girl standing near the convenience store entrance. They looked out of place, thin, dirty, and dressed in clothes that didn't match the cold. The woman appeared anxious, constantly glancing over her shoulder. The girl held a worn stuffed rabbit, clutched tight to her chest. The driver assumed they were homeless at first, but something about them lingered in his mind, especially the girl's face. A day later, he saw a news report about the Harrow case and called the sheriff's office immediately. Investigators obtained the gas station surveillance footage, and to everyone's shock, the images appeared to confirm it. The timestamp was from the night the trucker claimed. The footage showed a woman resembling Melissa and a small girl who looked like Lily walking into the store, staying only for a few minutes before quickly leaving. They didn't buy anything. Melissa kept her head down the entire time. The girl looked directly into the camera once. The image was blurry, but her expression was unmistakable. Tired, scared, and quiet. Before local deputies could reach the gas station, the two were gone. The next day, the sheriff's office received an anonymous phone call. The voice on the other end was hoarse, whispering just 6 words before hanging up. "You're looking in the wrong place." The call was untraceable. The signal bounced off multiple towers, and the phone was either destroyed or turned off. Immediately afterward, public interest in the case exploded again. Online forums speculated wildly. Some believed Melissa had escaped a captor and was now trying to stay hidden, fearful of being found again. Others suggested she may have been complicit in something darker, that she had faked the disappearance to run away from her old life. Still others believed they were being hunted, always on the move, trying to survive. Despite the renewed attention, no further sightings were confirmed. No more calls came in. search teams never located a body, a campsite, or another trace. It was as if Melissa and Lily had surfaced for a brief moment and then vanished once more, slipping back into silence. To this day, no one knows what really happened to Melissa Harrow and her daughter, whether they escaped something terrible or were still trapped in it, whether they were trying to get home or running from it. Their faces remain on missing persons posters, their names whispered in hushed tones among mountain towns, and their story unsolved continues to haunt the woods they once walked.